Asher lives in O'Fallon now. Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, the state of Missouri has a lot of things happening year-round regarding state legislature, Jefferson City, and today we're getting an update with our state senator, Ron Richard. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, Judy. Nice to be here again.
I always appreciate you taking time when you're in town to visit with us, and I introduced you as our state senator, but you have a new title now, Senate President.
President Pro Tem. Yes, in Missouri, the Senate President is the Lieutenant Governor, and the Senate elects someone to serve in when he's not there, which is what I'm doing as a Pro Tem, and I moved up from Senate Majority Leader a couple weeks ago.
So for the people who are watching, they say, well, what does the Senate Pro Tem do as far as the operations of the Senate? Kind of in a perspective, what does this mean for the Senate?
Before, as Majority Leader, I handle the daily business on the floor of the Senate. Now my business is to appoint chairman, committee members, assign bills to legislation to committees, and to try to help with policy towards these committees. So it's a little different take, and more of my work will be off the Senate floor when before it was during business hours in the Senate.
Right. So you're probably, as we're recording this program in early October, a lot of things gears are getting going before next session already.
Yeah, we're putting together the Senate staff for the new office and the caucus staff, so that's what I'll be doing next couple of weeks, get ready for January.
Great. Well, let's talk about the Senate and issues facing the state. I know you came out of a veto session a few weeks ago in September, and this is something that happens every year and didn't make a lot of headlines this year, but you did have a few stories that were coming out of that.
Yeah, we still overrode the governor on several issues. Unemployment insurance, to name one. Didn't make right to work, didn't get it out of the House. I suspect that we're going to be having a kind of a slow legislative session this year. Most of the times when you have election year in 2016, whether it's a Fed or the state, things move a little slowly because these guys are electing to make some tough votes from time to time when they're up for election, or they're just wanting to talk it to death. So that's what we're going to be dealing with now. But you know, we'll be talking about the same issues, and we got some legal reform we'd like to do, and probably some tax policy. Still have a little education thing and some funding. Transportation funding is going to be another big topic.
So a number of topics, and of course we're at the studios of Missouri Southern KGCS. People are always concerned in this area about higher education funding. The governor has recently announced plans or proposals for increasing some higher education funding. How does this tie into what you think the legislature might be looking at? Well,
higher education has been shortchanged over the last 8 or 9 years on the budget. They're the first ones that gets cut when revenues were short. The governor proposed a massive increase. Massive may be a stretch, an increase to higher ed. I think it's going to be well suited, particularly Southern, which is one of the few universities that's gaining students. But I don't know if he's had a conversation with the budget chairman in the House and Senate or not. I hope he has. I hope it would have been helpful, but you know, that'll be a topic of discussion starting in January. But you know, it's needed. All the universities either going to have to get that, they're going to have to raise tuition, so it's going to be one or the other.
Now, you talk about the budget process, so the planning before you can even start thinking about spending money. You're talking about the Senate and the House and the governor all kind of getting together and just perspective of where are we right now?
They'll try to do that before the end of the year and come up with a revenue plan that they think is a consensus between all three entities. You'd think they could come to some sort of agreement. We'd hope so.
So overall, when people say, how is the state of Missouri doing in terms of tax revenues and being able to afford to do things, are we seeing an upturn, or how are things looking?
Last year was a pretty good effort for the state of Missouri. Revenues were up slightly. And this year is supposed to be somewhat better, not necessarily better than last year, but in the last 4 or 5 years, kind of a tick up. But there's still a lot of demands on the budget. The Medicaid population keeps growing. Right. And if there is something we're going to do for higher ed, that's going to take some more dollars that we'll just earmark first. So, you know, it's, we'll see. Tom Flanagan, the budget chairman from Carthage, he has first shot at the budget, so they'll be making their recommendation to the Senate long about March. So we'll see how it goes. But you know, I'm optimistic. Southern needs the money, and so does other universities. So I'm optimistic about that. And then the transportation funding. Whether we can do something now or later, sooner or later we have to do something because we have a large asset in Missouri, and we have it. A lot of bridges and roads are being not maintained, so the asset is going to be even more costly down the road. So, you know, we're going to have to come up with some common sense plan.
And when you talk about transportation funding, for people think about roads and bridges, and they can think of the bridges that are may have signs because of weight limits, or because some of the parts of the state you have bridges that are closed because they're no longer safe. So this
there's some bridges that has weight limits around Carthage that fire trucks can't get across. And there's several thousand people works out in League and Platte out there off that bridge of where 96 bridge. So it's so I mean it's pretty important. So let's see where it goes. No promises, no guarantees, but I guarantee I will say we'll be working on it and make some effort. But it's the state legislature is not unlike the federal legislature. There is the people on the right and the left that don't like to compromise, and those of us that like to compromise, kind of get something done, is getting fewer and fewer.
So you're seeing more divisiveness even at the state level, people staying firm in their beliefs, not willing to listen to the other side sometimes.
Well, they listen, but getting to come to the table is getting harder and harder.
So challenges, and you mentioned federal government, we hear about it all the time, but at state level you're seeing more
of that. I'm sure you see the same thing at City Hall too, so it's all over.
It's all over. Well, I know that you have really been involved with economic development throughout your career, even going back to when you were with the city of Joplin, bringing businesses in, helping the existing businesses. Do you see these efforts paying off in Missouri, that you're seeing more businesses looking at the state?
I mean, we've got a pretty good economic development plan. We could do a little better job in recruiting and helping business expand. And you get an argument about bringing business into the state of Missouri and giving them incentives to come in and at the expense of companies that are already here in Missouri, and not have a level playing field with some kind of investment or incentives for them to expand. So I would hope that we could do something for businesses inside the state. Yeah, I've been involved in economic development from the start for over 25 years. We could do some things better on our tax policy and some of our legal policy and frivolous lawsuits and things that would make us more attractive. I mean, with the Panama Canal opening up here in another year or so, all that freight coming into the South, I mean, we have an opportunity to use some of that in our ports up the Mississippi River and Missouri River. So, we're ever mindful of that, and that's part of our transportation plan. Hopefully we can expand our port and the barge traffic and getting some things to New Orleans and that coast as opposed to the California coast, when we have a gridlock out there of getting freight in and out to the Japan and the West Indies. So
really that's tying into the overall national picture and how Missouri fits into that nationwide development.
Well, freight's going to be important, and that Panama Canal, when it's expanded, is going to be important, particularly to Missouri.
Right. Well, I know when you talk about businesses, bringing in business, what about existing businesses? There are a lot of small businesses in the state. People think about a major corporation coming in and building, but Missouri has really quite a few small businessmen, smaller companies supporting our economy.
Yeah. I mean, most of our growth has been in small and medium-sized businesses, and try to help them expand their operations in Missouri. But it's like Joplin, Missouri. Wants and needs to be diversified. So if you have a downturn in one economy, one kind of a business, oil or gas or something, that you'd like to be able to level off with something else. So we try to be diversified, as well as looking for opportunities for new growth in Missouri.
Well, as you travel and have talked about developing the economy and bringing in businesses, what do the other countries, I know you've traveled perhaps abroad to other countries, what are they looking for an ideal place to bring a business in? What attracts them to states like Missouri?
The transportation infrastructure, how you can get to markets, skilled workforce, how well are they trained, if they have a need for a particular workforce, how well are the universities and technical schools training those people to be able to go to work in these That's probably the most, and the legal climate, you know, frivolous lawsuits. Those are things I hear more than anything.
Right. You talk about skilled workforce tying once again to education. So the universities have to be planning for the future as far as what kind of labor or what kind of workers are they putting out there for people to hire that would be available.
Well, the business groups and the education groups are beginning to come together the last 4 or 5 years and tell the education, the universities, and you know, Franklin Tech's technical schools and 2 years that do the training, what kind of workforce that they need, and what do they think they'll need in the future, and then we'll try to push kids and incentivize kids to go in that direction. They can make a good living, and they don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year school or get a master's PhD. Sometimes they do better than those people anyway in higher ed. So it's very important that we keep a good trained workforce and keep young people in Missouri and not have them move out of the state of Missouri because there's opportunity somewhere else. We want to make sure opportunities stay in Missouri.
They're keeping opportunities here for people. Okay. When looking at the legislature, I know last year we heard about, you mentioned some reforms. There were reforms being mentioned, for instance, with lobbyists in the Capitol, and that's something that we've heard about for a few years, talking about how people lobby and working that whole arrangement in Jefferson City. Is this something we're going to continue to hear about and discuss?
Yeah, I tried to straighten that out the last couple of years, and I couldn't get it through the other side of the building. I suspect I'll try it again. And most of it is on some things, the meals and the gifts and things we're going to try to ban. Probably the biggest problem in the whole mess is term limits. I mean, term limits has let lobbyists and bureaucrats have all the knowledge of and all the power, because when members leave after 6, 7, 8 years, there's no knowledge of what's happened in the past. And some of this legislation is not all new, it's just variations of things that happened in the past. There's not a whole lot of new, really, ideas. So we're going to try and get some ethics reform and get that through the Senate. Hasn't been a trouble the last couple of years, but at least on the Senate side, I'll try to push it towards a final conclusion with the new Speaker of the House.
Now, having been in the House and now in the Senate, people question perhaps how do those two different bodies work? You know, you have to be able to go through both houses to pass a bill, obviously. So you have that experience on both sides of the building, basically. How do you explain to people, well, the Senate can pass something, but the House can't?
Well, the whole institution is designed not to pass things. I mean, you don't really want to be a legislative machine and pass everything you want, but you know, you have 163 in the House and 34 in the Senate, and different size committees and different variations. It just takes a while to get through the process. So you get something through both sides. It's a pretty good effort. So I'm not in any hurry to get anything passed, but nothing I want to have to pass. We have the budget, of course, but that ethics, I think it's based on what's happened in the legislature the last couple of years. I think there's probably going to be an effort to get something done, and hopefully I'll get that pushed across the lines.
And you'll be working closely then with the Speaker of the House when
We've
it comes
visited a couple times, yes, and he has some inclination to get that done too.
And when you look at working together with the House, and of course then the governor's involved when bills ultimately have to be signed by the governor. So earlier you mentioned sometimes people don't want to negotiate and work and compromise. Do you feel that it's important to listen to the other side, being able to maybe compromise sometime?
Well, if you're smart, you will, because nothing is ever black or white in the legislature. So it's a good idea to understand what the other side wants, and there might be some give and take, and it doesn't really compromise your principles. So that's what I've always tried to do. Been somewhat successful.
Well, off season right now, well, you're not in Jefferson City in session. People might say, well, what does a lawmaker do when he or she is not up there in Jefferson City? You are still keeping busy behind the scenes. Yeah,
I have an office here in town. Gwen Delano runs that, and then I have an office full-time staff in Jeff City, and now I'm recruiting and interviewing members in my office for the expanded office, because we do a lot of things for the Senate and a lot of things for the entire Republican Senate. So that's what I'm doing the next couple of weeks.
So you'll be preparing for everything that start happening in January.
I'll be preparing and start getting our legislative agenda ready mid-November.
Now, your local office in the Joplin area, constituent service, if I say it correctly, people have questions about they're dealing with some branch of Missouri government. You have the person that they can go to find out where do we go from here. You kind of serve people as well.
Yeah, Gwen's been with me. And she was even with the legislative process before I was there with Chuck Servant, he's a state rep. So, I mean, she's been in it longer than I have, so she knows how to get things done. We do some things for Billy Long, and we help Roy Blunt too, and we can get passports and push it along. We can help get tours in the White House, and we can get all various kinds of ideas. People sometimes think that when you have a title in the Senate of President Pro Tem Majority Leader, you get calls from all the states. So we've never been too parochial and have turf. We help people statewide and always have for years.
With that statewide perspective, I know you've had time in both the House and the Senate to hear what people are saying about Joplin. Do you continue to hear people from around the state praising Joplin? I remember an interview last year or so, you were talking about people were pointing to Joplin as one of the bright spots in the state with growth and jobs and opportunities.
Well, yeah, some still ask, but you know, time moves on, and they assume we're taking care of ourselves and doing what we need to do. So it's not quite as often. I may get a few comments, how you everything going, but frankly, I get tired of hearing about it. You know, I'd like to move on and get the region growing and try to help with the healing, and let's get back to where we were and make it better.
Joplin in the past has been seen as one of the growing parts of the state. Southwest Missouri, I should say, is one of the areas.
Still is, and we hope to make it even better.
Right. So looking at what makes that possible, to go back to the work ethic, the people that are in this region, that people want to move a business here because they know that there are people to help them out?
Well, I mean, the incentive program is the same statewide. I think this region, Southwest Missouri, has been a little more aggressive in recruiting and try to expand business because they understand that if we can put people to work, and it's going to help the tax structure in counties and cities throughout Southwest Missouri, and if we have more people buying more goods and getting service, then that's less that taxes that'll be raised, and the pie is bigger. So I encourage that. Nobody likes tax increases.
And that's the topic that people, you know, if you mention tax increases, you know you've got the people lined up to say no right away if you're going to vote on something like that.
Well, there's always some of that.
So you have to deal with those challenges. We have opportunities in the state for growth in areas that you're looking at. Are there any other hot button issues that you see coming up in January when you come back in there?
Not yet. I'll be meeting with the House and Senate leaders in the next 60 days to decide if there is, but there's always 2 or 3 issues that come up midterm that for some reason that doesn't appear to be important now. So I don't like surprises, so I'll be getting ready for the surprises.
So anticipating what may come up. Expect the unexpected sometime? You have
if you're smart, you will.
Going into that. Your service in the Senate and the House, and then prior to that, for some of our viewers who are not familiar, that you served even Joplin City Council, your early years of serving the community.
Yeah, I started, I don't know, I've been in government about 30 years. I started, I think the first interview you and I had was on the Zoning and Planning Commission, and went to Chairman of Zoning and Planning, then went to the City Council, and then from there went to Mayor, and then State Representative, and then Speaker of the House, and then State Senate, the Majority Leader, now President Pro Tem. So I've been very fortunate. Doors have opened for me, and I've been lucky enough to walk in, and been very fortunate. The Southwest Missouri has been very good to me and very nice to me.
Now, people who are watching, perhaps some of our students at the university, what can they do in the future? What do you say to people about the importance of getting involved in your community? You know, what sparked your initial interest in saying, I want to serve my community?
I think when I started was the job creation. I didn't think Joplin was doing a very good job of expanding our economy. I mean, you go to Springfield or somewhere around, you saw the thriving business, you saw a lot of traffic, and I just thought we could do better, and that's what kind of piqued my interest, and I've been working on it ever since.
And for people who, even joining a board like you were in Planning and Zoning, that's a volunteer position, you're appointed into that. There's a lot of ways people can get involved in their community.
Well, you can find out if you like government by getting in a board or commission, and there's boards and commissions in the state as well. And Gwen was compiling a list now for vacancies on state boards and commissions. So if there's an interest, we'll have openings and people can apply, and we'll see if the governor appoints. And when the governor appoints, then my committee on gubernatorial appointments will give advice and consent it, and see if we can push them along.
And this includes even things such as the Missouri Southern Board of Governors.
Oh yeah, I've appointed almost all of them now. We have 2 openings coming up, and we'll have 2 more members hopefully soon this fall.
So as people are looking for a way to get involved, this is one way they can get involved in their community
without
having to be elected.
I've been trying to get Missouri Southern to be the first university to have equal number of men and women on it. Some of these boards of commissioners nothing but an old man's club. And I think we need to get more women involved. And I've been pretty lucky. We have Tracy Flanagan, then we have Ms. Hershaway just got on there, and I'm trying to get another one from Springfield. So, you know, we're pushing things along, and that's my goal, though.
So when you're in Jefferson City, you are representing Missouri Southern as well. People know that Missouri Southern is your home university.
Yeah, I graduated from here in 1969, first graduating class.
And when you come back to campus like this to visit, you've seen a lot of changes over the campus. What makes the points of pride for you when you come back to Missouri Southern?
The fact that they've been able to survive and grow in this ever-changing climate of competition between University of Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Pitt State, Missouri State, that there is a niche of Missouri Southern. And frankly, these students and people I've dealt with have competed with universities all over the country and compete with anybody. I mean, I compete with people from Yale and Harvard and Southern Cal, all of them all over the world. And you know, I can match wits with them most of the time.
So you would very, very well say that Missouri Southern graduates are representing the university and our community well when they go into their professions.
I would say that they're as well prepared as any other university.
So they're getting their value for their education here at Missouri Southern. And of course you are looking at statewide universities all having needs. We're seeing some progress here at Missouri Southern with facilities, the health science not the health science building a few years ago. Now we have Reynolds Hall, major renovation thanks to some state support. So the state has recognized there's a need for some facilities improvements to help out with these things.
Well, and Dr. Marble was just here a minute ago, and he reminded me that he still could use some funding because enrollment's up, and with the medical school coming and the partnership with the dental school coming to University of Missouri, there's going to be some needs in that building. So I'll be working with Dr. Marble trying to figure out if we can get an extra bump in some revenue to take care of these growth in students in science and technology.
And Missouri Southern has traditionally been at the bottom of the scales as far as state appropriations per student over the years, so we've kind of had that struggle over the years, just how much comes to the school.
We'll see if we can rectify that.
Right. And what does that mean for the students? You know, we have students running the cameras in here, and what does it mean to be able to get more state revenue in their terms, you know, for them as a student?
Well, you know, just increased opportunities, and class sizes maybe won't be so massive, and maybe there's something, you know, when you start doing what this university is going to do in a medical school, that's something that's never been thought of in all the years I've been around here, so it's just the opportunities that brings with it.
A lot of dreams becoming realities here in this region, and to people looking at that. Well, looking forward to 2016 legislative session. It's also an election year, as you mentioned earlier. Any feelings about everybody throwing their hat in for the different races for the statewide positions? No, I don't. All I know is that on the floor of the Senate, all these members running for something statewide, anytime there's an issue, each one of them will pop up and probably give an hour's campaign speech on the floor of the Senate. So I'll have to deal with that. So is that tough to challenge and kind of keep things under control?
It happens. You just got to put up with it. But you know, so we have to be very careful what you put on the floor of the Senate, particularly later on in the session. Early shouldn't be much of a problem, but it's just the way it is in politics. You know, I'll survive, and we'll get our priorities out there and try to get something for the benefit of Missourians past.
Any particular goals that you have then going into 2016, leading the Senate like this?
No. My goal was to try to make the Senate functional, let it have a dialogue and debate that was genuine and stayed to the topics, and that'll continue to be my goals. Make it functional. So functional meaning you actually can accomplish things that you haven't at the end of the day? Or not. Sometimes you don't want to pass things, but still have an open and fair debate is important, and being functional means you have open and fair debate, and it doesn't get into personalities. Does that allow try to come to a result in many of these times. So listening to both sides of the aisle, basically, in many cases. You want to hear what the other people are saying, letting them have their say. Well, sometimes you don't want to hear it, but you deal with it. Right, they're going to say it. You have to. Yeah. So I mean, you deal with it. So, and someone from Joplin is watching the program, and they've never been to Jefferson City. Is there open door as far as come visit the Capitol? Public building. Yeah, welcome visitors to come by. Every day, and of course we give tours, and there's a tour staff in the Capitol. But it's one of the nicest capitals in the whole country. It's a large large facility. Matter of fact, we're spending some money on remodeling that to get some parts of it ADA accessible. We've had some leakage coming in the Capitol, try to get rid of the water problem. So it's a great place to go to work. I can tell you that. It just makes you feel really good when you walk into that building and try to get something done or not done. I guess it depends on which side of the issue you are on that. But you know, it's an honor to be elected, and then when you're elected by your own peers to be in leadership, and I've been elected, I've had the third time this has been elected. That's pretty unique, so I'm ever mindful of respect for the building and respect for people inside the building and outside, and try to do the job with the utmost respect and care about, because when you leave, you want to make sure you try to make it just a little bit better than you found it.
They're really contributions. A lot of history up there too. I mean, the seats that you are filling in the past, you know, they've had a lot of people that people remember who.
Yeah, there's only, you know, 8,500 people ever served in the legislature over time. So you have to be mindful of the tradition, and I'm a traditionalist, and I'm try to make sure that our kids and the young members understand the traditions of the House and Senate.
Is that part of your job as the newly elected people come in to kind of let them?
It's not, but I make it my job anyway.
You like to mentor them?
Well, I like to explain to them that, you know, you dress for the job and you act for the job, and a lot of good things will happen when you do that.
Right. So it pays to have people with experience bringing the new people up that are coming in for the first time. Did you have someone who helped bring you on board when you started? Stands out in your mind?
Senator Webster.
The building's named after him. We're sitting in.
Yeah, he loved the tradition of the Senate, and he was a former speaker like me. So you know, and all the reps, you know, Mark Elliott, Chuck Service, Gary Burton, gave me some ideas of what to do, and particularly what not to do.
So do you feel that the Southwest Missouri or the Joplin area legislators are a good team working together? I mean, do you communicate with the House on the representatives from this area? Kind of.
Yeah, I see all these guys often, as I saw all the members I've served with over my career, and we've had a pretty good working relationship with almost everybody, and even the Springfield groups. I mean, St. Louis and Kansas City can't get anything done unless they have Southwest Missouri, because we have all the votes and we're on the Republican side, and generally those issues, we've been a Republican majority since 2002. So the metropolitan areas need us, and that makes our members and chairmanships a little more powerful, and what they have to say is a little more important. So, but they've all got a pretty good team, and work pretty well.
So for the local voters, the local viewers, they know they're well represented at Jefferson City.
I don't think we have a bad apple in the whole pot. I think they're all pretty good people.
Great. Well, Senator Richard, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us today,
sure,
sharing with the audience.
Anytime, anytime. And one of these days, maybe we'll interview and I'll be finished. You started me when I started.
That's right. You started in
and I'll be
politics.
Finished in 3 years.
In 3 years, then the term limit.
So send me. Yeah, that's right. Send me a packet.
All right, well, thank you for being here today and
Thank
sharing
Judy,
with the
always a
audience.
pleasure.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.